So Mark, there's plenty of places that I think we can start. I did have a think when I was driving through today that could start in the fact that you travelled to Bali as a digital nomad. You ran your business over there, which is fucking class. We could start with the fact that you've scaled an agency now to a stage where you're hiring members. I think the last time we spoke you were at 3, but you're scaling up to 5. And you're now obviously in a position where you're scaling probably upwards towards the kind of six figures per month mark, mate, which will be fucking outstanding. But there's a good few areas that we can take this, mate. But we'll start at the kind of beginning of the journey, how you actually even got started in the first place. We got some fucking TikTok fame, other things that we can actually touch on, mate. So it'll be a class episode, man. But how did it actually start for you? How did you end up in business? Let's talk about it, mate.
Yeah, no, amazing to be here. And yeah, you kind of touched on it there. There's been a lot of turns and sort of winds in the road to get to where we are today. But to kind of go right back to where it all began really was back to uni. So I was doing engineering at uni, and it was one of those things where it's just, you have to pick something. It's like the right thing to do nowadays in Scotland. It's like, you go to school, you get your hires done, you go to uni. It's just like the logical step. Like nobody even really thinks about it. You just like fall into this system that just churns you in. So my mum was like, yeah, you know, what we're doing, like pick something, you need to go. And I was like, I don't know. Like I genuinely do not know what I want to do with my life. Don't really know what I'm passionate about. Like I don't really know where the next step is, but I was always better at like maths and physics and that kind of thing. So engineering just seemed like the logical step. And it was like, yeah, cool, I'll do that. Because it got everybody off my back, and it was a next step. So I got to uni, and then I was there enjoying uni as you do, you know, the social life and the party and all the stuff that comes with it. But as time went on and I was getting towards the end of uni, everyone else was kind of starting looking at us like, okay, where are we going to go, and you know, what we're doing for a career? I want to go and do work in this industry. I want to go and work in Formula One and all these kind of cool jobs. And I was looking about, but I was like, I don't actually enjoy any of this. I'm going through the motions, like sitting exams, but like I do not want to do this for the next 40 years. And there was an internship I did down south actually, and I went down. It was a 12-week internship, and I got about 3 weeks into it, and I was sitting in this little office looking about at the people I was working with, and it felt so depressing. I was looking about and I was like, I'm fed up with this in 3 weeks. I've got to do this for 40 years. Like there's so much longer of this to go. And I just remember thinking like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So literally, as soon as I got back from that internship, I was like, okay, I had like the fire in me. Like it did motivate me to, okay, there's more after uni. You know, there's something out there to go and chase and to progress with, which I didn't feel like I had in uni, because it was just going through the motions, and I was just there because I had to be. So it did light a fire, and okay, like I know I want to do something, but it's not that. Like definitely isn't that. Yep. So it was the traditional thing of going on Google, and it's like how to make money online. And I wonder how many people have typed that in. Like, it must be one of the most searched things on Google. But it was actually e-commerce and drop shipping was the first thing that I started to fall into. Nice. So I spent, I must have been about 3 months on YouTube, downloading like free courses offline, like pirating them because I didn't want to pay for them, obviously. And I spent so long learning about drop shipping and e-commerce, but like not actually doing it. And I remember sitting there, I was like, right, I have to do something. So that whole like term, it's like paralysis by analysis or whatever. And I was like, I need to start at some point. So I was like, right, that's it. Next week, it's Monday. I'm going to make a store. I'm going to get set up. I'm going to do this. And I think it was like the Saturday night or something like that. It was like the Saturday or the Sunday. I remember opening up the news, and it was like Donald Trump puts new sanctions on China shipping or something like that. And I was like, for God's sake. I've sat about for 3 months just thinking about doing this. I'm like, right, finally going to do it. And it's like slapped. And this was just before COVID as well, actually. So it was like all the shipping delays and stuff. So I thought, right, I can't do that. But I spent so long learning about marketing and advertising, all that kind of stuff, and decided, well, if I can't sell my own products, I'll just sell other people's. I'll like find, lead gen services, that kind of stuff that I can advertise for. So I started running that, but it was more like mortgage brokers and that kind of thing. Yep. And it's a hard one, because doing like lead gen services for mortgage brokers and stuff it's hard to show your value, because you're generating them leads today, but that doesn't translate into money in their bank account. If I deliver them someone who maybe wants to buy a house in 3 months' time, it's like, okay, they're paying me now, but they're not getting their money for 3 months. So it was really hard to show the value you were delivering. I very quickly decided, well, I need to try and scale this up, but I didn't really have like the lead flow. So I was trying to do like cold email and that kind of stuff, but I'd heard a lot, you hear people online talking about content and using content to acquire customers. So I thought, well, how do I get followers quick? Like, I need to build an online presence like overnight.
Yeah.
And TikTok was the easy answer. So at the same time, I was kind of running this like ads agency, trying to do lead gen. And I started uploading on TikTok just with the intention of getting clients for the business. And it was kind of one of those success stories where it's like, you always think like, oh, TikTok's going to be easy. It's like you upload a few videos, it goes viral, done. And I was like, yeah, cool. Like that'll maybe happen. But like, I didn't really believe it that much. But literally within, I uploaded our first video and within like 6 days, I had 20,000 followers on TikTok. It was like ridiculous. Like 6 days, 0 to 20K. But the problem was like the content that was blowing up was also talking about like finance and investing and that kind of stuff. So I kind of got hooked, but I ended up growing these like 2 different things. Like one was this sort of personal brand on TikTok. The other was the agency. And they were supposed to be complementing each other. But I'd actually just created like 2 separate vehicles that were going in completely different directions and pulling the focus. So yeah, so probably about a year and a half ago now, actually, I made the decision that the TikTok was just going to be more of a distraction. The agency was a better vehicle to get to where I wanted to go in terms of building a business that I could automate, plug people into. That was the route I kind of wanted to go down. So made the decision to switch and turned it into a complete e-commerce agency and just focusing on TikTok ads as well. So niche right down into a service. And ever since then, we've just been focusing on scaling that up. So yeah, there's a kind of couple of like roundabout paths in there to get to where we are today. But I think that's kind of normal in business as well. Like you never, whatever you set out to do now, in 12 months time, you could be doing something very different. The important thing is like you're just heading in a direction with some sort of intention and you'll fall into something that you'll fit in.
Yeah, there's so many ways that we can take this, mate, but we'll run it back to the kind of beginning where you spoke about your obviously internship. So how long was the actual internship?
12 weeks. Yeah.
12 weeks. And is that something, like when you came home, was that something you discussed with like parents and stuff that was something you didn't want to do? Or was it just a straight up kind of, I'm not doing this anymore?
I can't actually remember when I told them that I didn't want to do it, but so I did. So that was the end of, that was my 3rd year of uni going into 4th year. I went and did the internship, and so it must have been about halfway through 4th year I started to tell them, it's like, look, I don't want to do engineering. Because at that point, the first thing I started looking into actually was property. So round about the whole how to make money online stage, I'd also started looking into like, oh, how can I invest in property? There's all the kind of different schemes, is like rent to rent and stuff you can do with low capital. And that initially was what I was getting that's where my focus was. So I was going and like looking at viewings and I was going and looking at property. So they kind of saw it straight away that, okay, his attention's elsewhere. It's not really on engineering. He's looking at properties and that kind of stuff. So they knew initially at that point was like, okay, his attention's probably going to deviate from engineering. But I ended up at the end of 4th year, I was still kind of in limbo mode of like not really knowing what I was going to do. Definitely didn't want to go and get a grad job. Like that was out the question. So I thought I'll go back and do a master's at uni. So I ended up going back to do a 5th year engineering master's purely just because I was like, it buys me another year at uni that I don't need to go and get a job. But like literally 3 months into that, I remember sitting doing this master's and I was like, I'm not doing this. Like I'm dropping out. Because at this, I just started the agency and I had maybe like 1 or 2 clients that, because obviously you've got no costs at that point as well. It's just you delivering a service. I was like, I could get by with just these 1 or 2 clients. Like, I do not want this. And the only reason I stuck in at uni was because of my mum and dad. Like, I never, like I said this to them as well at the time. I was like, if it wasn't for you wanting me to be here at uni and to get this master's, like I would not be here. And there were so many times during that last year I was like, I really want to drop out. But it was purely just for them because I knew that like to them that master's was more important than it was to me. Like to get it and to give them the sort of security as well. I was like, okay, if he gets to the end of this master's and goes and does his own thing, he's always got that to fall back on. So it kind of bought me the freedom from them of I'm going to do this master's, I'm going to go and try and do my own thing, and if it all does go to crap, if I do this for like a year and it just goes to shit, like I've still got that to fall back on. So it bought me that freedom. But I have to say, like, they have been so supportive. Like they've never questioned me once. They've never like at the end of uni when like I wasn't applying to grad jobs, had no intention of going out, didn't really have a clear path. They were never sort of pushed me or pressured me into anything. So I do have to be quite grateful that they were actually really supportive of it. Yeah,
because I think that's one of the common things when I do speak to a lot of individuals that their parents, with the kind of uni side of things, that obviously they only want the best for you, man. They only want something that is actually, it's like their form of protection. You got that degree, then you can obviously no matter what happens, you've got something that you can actually fall into. Whereas like the way in which the world's evolved, man, there's the amount of shit that we can do now, through businesses and so on and so forth. Like the land of opportunity has never been greater. So it can be sometimes something that is hard to understand. From like the older generation of mums and dads. So yeah, it's an interesting one, man, because I think a lot of people probably listening obviously get a lot of listeners that are kind of transitioning through into the kind of young entrepreneur stage where they want to start a business. They're stuck with other commitments, or they're stuck with the pressures of family or friends or whatever it may be, where they don't actually know what to do outside the societal norm. And it's interesting because obviously you still actually went through it, but you then started scaling the agency on the side. Was that just like was that the decision that you made in order for you to, like you said about buying yourself an extra year? Was that just a matter of like, cool, buy myself an extra year where I don't have to get a job, so I'll just balance the time aspect of uni and scale the agency on the side? Yeah.
Yeah. I was quite fortunate the same though that especially in Scotland, we get free education, and it was like an integrated master, so I didn't have to pay for it. So there was no tuition fees or anything. It wasn't as if I was like going into debt to do it. It was literally like a free year. If I failed and got like literally messed up the masters, cool. Like I didn't really pay for it. There was nothing really lost.
Yep.
So yeah, it was just an extra year to like balance that time really.
For sure. And then obviously you kind of spoke about how you started to acquire these kind of like high ticket skills, which I think is something that when anyone ever comes to me and they're like, I want to start a business or I want to get involved in business, but I don't know what to do, I always think that this is the best direction to actually go. So you obviously spoke about downloading free courses, getting actually in the mix of it, Googling how to make money. Like, what was the kind of turning point where you actually realised that you could actually acquire this high ticket skill that could directly impact businesses and their revenue?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really doubted it, to be honest. Like I've always known that I could do anything I put my mind to. And like if I sit down and I dedicate myself and I learn the right skills, I'll be able to pull it off. It was just, it was sitting down and learning the right thing. But something I do struggle with is wanting to learn too much. Because I've got that mindset of like, okay, there's no reason that if I dedicate myself to learning every day, like I can pick up those skills. You know, you sit down, you read, just pure exposure to doing the right things or learn from people ahead of you, you will get there. Like if you sat down and learned, for example, learn to play the guitar. If you play the guitar for an hour every day for 2 years, in 2 years' time, you're going to be okay. Like, you might not be a natural prodigy guitar player, but if you do it every day, you'll get to a point where it's like you can get by. And I always had that mindset, but then it's also hindered me, I think, because I have that mindset of like, oh, I need to keep learning. You know, I'm not good enough yet. Like, if I want to go out and charge people to manage their ad spend and to run their money, like I need to be able to do it to a high enough level, because I put that pressure myself of like I do want to deliver to a higher level as well. But then it's also, I end up quite often in that whole just over analysis stage where I don't know enough yet. I'm not confident. I don't feel ready. I don't want to get started. And I felt that like I started with drop shipping, spent way too long just learning about that. Even when I kind of started the agency, spent way too long just doing courses and even I think it hindered my growth. Like I could have grown faster, done more outreach, signed more clients, but there was fear in there that like I don't feel ready for that. I don't want to take on more clients and risk losing them because I didn't feel ready for that. So there's a big point there of you can do anything. Like if you do spend the time learning, there's no reason you can't achieve it. But you do also have to jump in at some point because you'll learn more by doing than you will in any textbook.
Getting the actual experience in without a doubt, mate. And I think for a lot of individuals, they get stuck in that kind of time period of paralysis by analysis, wanting to actually get as much information, which I think it's an interesting one because obviously it seemed to me with the university and having kind of good grades at school and stuff like that you're a pretty good learner, which like majority of actually just acquiring a skill from your perspective is just learning, whereas for example for me it's mainly just doing. Like I actually need to get in the trenches, and when I look at like scaling the network, for example, it was a matter of just acquiring my 3 ideal clients, pitching to them what it was actually going to look like, how it was going to help them long term. And it was like, look man, like I'm not taking the position of an expert here. I want you to rip me to shreds almost every week and tell me how the fuck I can improve this shit, which is a completely different outlook that most people take because they want to position themselves obviously as an authority, which it seemed to me like that was what you believed you had to do with it kind of within business, which I think most individuals. Ian had a client this morning speaking about how he feels like he's like too young to position himself in a place where he's charging, you know, a few £1,000s a month, even though his service is fucking nuts. and he's providing immense results for his clients. And in the topic of results, you kind of went down the path of doing like a pay per result kind of process with your kind of agency. Was that something that tied in with the whole, I don't know how to explain it, but like kind of what we're touching on just now, was that a kind of logical thought process of acquiring that kind of?
That kind of came about more from just testing offers, to be honest.
Okay.
Like great book, $100 million offers by Alex Mosley.
Yeah.
I feel like probably everybody's read that by now, but just experimenting with what can I present to the market that people are going to resonate with and buy. And something that I've done a lot more testing with recently. So that was one that we did test where it was pay on performance. So there's like no upfront fee. You just pay on, whenever we get results, a percentage of ad spend or whatever. And yeah, surprisingly, that didn't resonate as well as I thought it would. Which again, just shows the importance of testing more. It's not just a case of like, have an idea, write down some ideas in a notebook. Yeah, that one's probably the best. Let's go with that. It's like, you don't know that. Like, have a list of options and run through them and test them. And never be done testing new offers, new services, new systems, literally everything. Just always be testing. And that's something I've learned more of, because again, to kind of touch on what you just mentioned about being maybe slightly more academic or book smart. Like I was never that natural entrepreneur. Like all the time you get people on podcasts and they go, yep, was selling lemonades at 5 and then I was doing up bikes when I was 7 and selling sweets in school and that kind of stuff. Like that wasn't me. And like the other thing here, like kind of entrepreneurs say is, I never fitted in at school. Like I knew that it wasn't the environment for me, but I was okay. I did okay in school, got okay results, would go home and play FIFA, sat and played COD at night. Like I wasn't doing anything like different or special. So my kind of learning style is more analytical, looking at like reading, learning, studying notes, and then trying to apply it rather than just sort of jumping in all the time. And one of the things I've had to learn is to just jump in and try things, whether it is a new offer, whether it's new messaging, launching new ads, whatever it is just throw stuff out more often and just see how it goes. Like you don't have to line up all your ducks first and make sure everything's in a row. It's like just get moving is definitely the best thing. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think $100 million offers is easily the best book that explains that in a way. Because I know there's an example within the book around lead gen. I think it is just the offer that you're kind of touching on, mate, that I think it's interesting because you said it actually didn't work the way that you wanted it to. What was the cons of it? Like, why do you think it never worked with an offer like that when it is pay per result? Like, what was the downsides that people were seeing to it? Yeah, I think the people that resonated with it, so a lot of where we were testing it was in like outbound, so like cold outbound messages. And a lot of the people that were resonating that were ended up on calls with were startups, they're kind of lower stage brands who maybe don't have the budget to invest in, retainers every month and sort of invest that upfront cost. And they're looking for someone that's like, oh, I'll run everything for free, and then only once we're making you profit, then I'll charge you. So we were getting a lot of like low quality leads in, and we weren't really getting on the phone with any of these sort of big brands, because like if you imagine like Netflix or something like that, like they're probably going to an agency, and this like they're going to be a like A+ agency. They're going to be like top of the game. They're probably not working for free. They go, we know our quality, we know what we deliver, we know the results we get. Here's how much we charge. This is what it costs. So I think these like bigger brands are more accustomed to the best agencies that we want, that we know are going to get results, are probably happy to charge up front because they know that the results they get. So kind of found that, we're just getting on calls with sort of lower quality leads rather than the sort of bigger brands we want to get with. And the other thing was, because we're not charging unless we get results, there is kind of strict qualification around what brands we can work with. You need to have your brand in a certain place. You need to have certain offers tested. You need to have like product market fit, etc. So that we know that when we come in, you've got your end sorted, so that we can worry about our stuff. Because it's a partnership at that point. So we were getting on loads of calls with these unqualified brands that they couldn't even end up signing. So it just didn't really resonate. So yeah, kind of going back to more testing of trying guarantees and stuff like that as well. Just mixing up sort of guarantees. Also just changing up, what you're presenting. So how do you package it up? So rather than it's just like, so for example, we do TikTok ads. Instead of it just being, we do TikTok ads, it's an all-in-one service. We do influencer marketing. It's like just playing around with how you present stuff as well as, like that all comes under the offer. Yeah, I think the positioning's incredibly important, mate. It's an interesting one because I think we spoke about it the first time that we actually mentioned back and forth, which is around like majority of people when they start out, they work with small to medium businesses, and it's because that's where they feel comfortable. That's where they feel like
they fit in, and that's where they feel like they actually resonate with the other individuals on the receiving end. And it's also where they feel like they're going to find the people that can afford the prices that they can offer with that kind of lower end. And it almost is, it's backwards, like we spoke about, where those individuals that are paying less actually want more, and the individuals that pay more actually want less. And it's just shaking that mindset of actually understanding that, you know, you do have the value that can apply to these bigger brands, and these bigger brands will actually want to work with you if you're getting those level of results. But it comes with, like you said, positioning yourself as that authority. Is that something that resonates? I know we kind of touched on it already.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned that it's one of the things we did speak about earlier, but you need to pull a lever. When you deliver your service, you deliver something of value.
Yeah.
And whether that brand is at $1 million a month or whether that brand is at $5K a month, you're going to deliver your service. Yeah. Like, it takes the same amount of effort to pull that lever, whatever stage the brand's at. Okay, there's maybe like slight differences and nuances for different brands, and you know, they operate slightly differently, but for the most part, it's the same amount of energy, the same amount of input. Like, it makes sense to just work with the sort of higher level brands. And
100%. We
kind of struggled with that initially because if you're starting up a business and you don't have results yet, it's hard to get in touch with those high brands, because the first thing they're looking for is, who else have you worked with? Let's see your case studies. Can you do it for us? And if you're getting started, that can be hard. And one of the things that we found kind of by accident, like it wasn't 100% intentional, but someone had reached out to us and said, look, we've got these brands. Would you be able to come on and, like, it was actually one brand specifically. He said, we're working with this one brand. We do their Facebook, we do their Google. Can you come in and just help with their TikTok? Because we don't have that capacity. So it was like another fairly big agency. And I was like, yeah, 100% cool. Like, it was a serious brand. We're doing like 1.3 million a month or something. And it was like the biggest brand that we'd worked with yet. But the other agency obviously saw it, was like, okay, the guy obviously knows his stuff. You know, he knows what he's doing. I can see that he knows what he's talking about. Maybe he doesn't have the biggest case studies yet, but like, I've got confidence that he'll be able to deliver. So he kind of gave us that shot. And it went well. You know, we managed to get some decent results. And then from there, he gave us more of his clients. So, you know, the other clients that worked with his agency, you know, gave us more and more. Before we knew it, we had like 4 or 5 of these like really big brands that we were working on and generating case studies. You know, we're inside their account. We were launching the ads. We were making all the content. And we built up these case studies of us working with really big brands. And it was a great way to kind of get in the back door of, it gave us access to these bigger accounts without having to actually go through the brand. We just kind of went through someone else on like a white label partnership. So that's another opportunity that I don't actually see many people talking about as well. If you're trying to get into business, it's always just, how do I get in contact with the brand? But like, is there another way in? Could you tag on to someone else's service and like add on to what they're providing to make it more valuable? Or is there something else that you can set up like a white label partnership with, where you deliver it, but they pitch it to their brands as if it's them that's selling it, and you just pitch it to them at a slightly lower rate? So kind of getting creative around, okay, how can we get those kind of clients and that level of clients? And so how can we get in the back door and like get creative with how you get there?
Definitely. I mean, I think there's a great analogy that's around, like, when people are first coming into business, they're cutting their slice of the pie, whereas majority of people at the top, well, it's kind of a weird analogy. I don't know the best way to actually position it, but majority of individuals to begin with, they are, you know, trying to explore every opportunity to benefit themselves, whereas majority of people at the top, they're sharing with the individuals at the top to actually provide each other with opportunities on how to move forward. And I think a lot of people to begin with, they don't know how to create those relationships that actually create those opportunities. And it's something that I've noticed from obviously running Young and Lazy, the amount of opportunities that actually come from that on a day-to-day basis, just from people talking with each other regularly and building rapport and building trust, that actually leads to them gaining clients just naturally. Like, see, when I hop on a call with someone and they're like, yeah, I want to join the network for referrals, I'm like, it's not going to work, man, if that's like your core like focus of actually joining the network. If you're joining to improve your business and actually build relationships with other people, those referrals will come regardless. And I think you're absolutely right, mate. I think a lot of people would benefit greatly from exploring a backdoor method, almost, that even shouldn't even be a backdoor method, mate. The people at the top are working that way all the time. It's just, to begin with, people don't know any better, and they're just in it for themselves.
You just need to find the people at the top, and it's purely just by getting yourself out there. Like, that one for us came through, was like a mastermind. So it was like a TikTok kind of training mastermind. So it was kind of part course and then part community. And they had a Slack channel. So it was literally just by being in that Slack channel, messaging, talking, blah, blah, blah. And this guy obviously thought, right, I need someone who's half decent at TikTok. I'll join this quick community, go in there, find someone. I'm sure we weren't the only person he spoke to. He probably messaged a few of the people in there, but he was like, yeah, I'll find a few people in here that literally know what we're talking about, and we'll get them into what we're doing. But it's just like joining communities, being part of groups, messaging, and I wasn't in there like, who's got clients for me? You know, you're just in there chatting about TikTok. What are you doing? Oh, we tried this thing the other day. That worked really well. Oh, so you're doing that. How's that working for you? It's just being there and being seen. It's just chatting, being part of the communities, and there's no substitute for getting out there. And it doesn't have to, like, there's obviously content, there's social media, and you can be posting, which obviously great, do that. But also just joining communities and being part of discussions is, and it's hard because it's like, there's no formula to it. It's not as if you can guarantee that I'm going to join this group, I'm going to send 5 messages a day, and in 2 weeks' time, I'll get a lead. It's like, you've no idea. It's random. You can't predict it, but you've just got to be out there.
Yeah, no, I completely understand, mate. And one of the things that we touched on prior to this was you kind of building your network when you kind of went into the digital nomad, I guess, kind of space in Bali and stuff like that. And we touched on a lot of good shit on that, mate, which I think is incredibly valuable.
Should have just recorded that call.
We should have, mate, for sure. Just plugged it in. I think Paul would have sorted us right out. We're just plugging that in. But yeah, in the kind of Bali digital nomad side of things, you just pretty much packed up a bag and just went and ran your business over there, which we did touch on a good couple of ideas all around, like time difference, the fact that you just went over solo. You didn't, wait for anyone or go with anyone else. You knew maybe one guy that was over there or coming over there. And for a lot of people, man, that scares the shit out of them, mate. Like, scares the shit out of them. From what we gathered as well, kind of did make you feel pretty uncomfortable to begin with also, but you just done it regardless, mate. What was the kind of thought process behind that, mate? Why do you feel like it was really important for you to do so?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it was the reason that I started as well. When I got into thinking about what I wanted to do, and initially I said I was kind of starting looking at property and investing, that kind of stuff, but again, meant I was tied to Scotland. Like, I wanted the freedom to explore and stuff. So when I realised that, okay, I could start something, work from my laptop and work from anywhere in the world, that was like a light bulb for me. That was kind of like the vision. Like, okay, there's the whole, I want to make money, I want to have a nice life, drive nice cars. Like, of course, all that stuff's tempting, but the thought of just like the freedom of going anywhere was the main thing. Because even going back to that internship, it was the monotonous routine of getting up 6:30 in the morning. I would go get my shirt on, go downstairs, eat my Weetabix, drive into work, park in the same car parking spot, walk up the stairs, sit at the same desk, drive home, repeat. Like every day, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, at the same desk. And I was like, this is depressing. Like, I cannot do this. So it was just the thought of like, imagine waking up on a Tuesday morning and just going wherever I want. Like, I could work here, go and work in a coffee shop. I could work in Barcelona, like anywhere. Like that was what was inspiring for me. So when I first started, that was always the goal of like getting to the point where it's comfortable enough and I've got that freedom where I could go anywhere. So it kind of just crept up on me, and I was like working and just gradually growing the agency, and you're just kind of locked in on the day to day, and I'm like, okay, we're progressing. And I remember sitting there like at my desk one day, and it was grey outside, pissing with rain. I was like, man, this is crap. I was like, why am I still here? Like, I don't actually need to be here. Like, it kind of snuck up on me, and I got to the point where I was like, wait, like, I could just leave right now. Like, I'm making an okay income. It's all from my laptop. There's nothing tying me to this desk in this house. Like, I literally don't need to be here. And I thought, why am I still here? And I thought about it for like a week, 2 weeks, and you realize, I was like, oh, I could leave, but then it's like, yeah, maybe I'll do that soon. You kind of put it off, and you're like, oh, we'll get around to that, and you just go back to work. And the next week, and I was like, oh yeah, this is still crap. Like, I don't like being here. It's like, why don't you go? And there was no good reason. I was just kind of putting it off. And it got to one night, I was sitting there, and I was like, you just need to book this. Like, you just need to go on to Skyscanner, book a flight, and just commit yourself. And I just did it on the spot. I was like, if I don't do this now, I'll just put it off for another 2 weeks, another month, another 2 months. I'll end up doing it eventually, and I'll just wish, why didn't I just do this like 3 months ago? So I just did it. I was like, just don't give myself a choice, just book. And it actually wasn't that, like, from the moment I booked the flight up until like just before I left, it wasn't actually that nerve-wracking. I was kind of like, cool, yeah, this will be fun. Like, I'm going to Bali, I'm going to go and explore. But then like a few days before you actually leave, it kind of sets in, and you're like, crap, I'm going to like Indonesia. I'm going halfway across the world. Don't know anybody. Don't know where I'm going to be. I didn't even have an Airbnb booked until like 3 days before I went. I was just like, I booked the flight, and I was like, I'll get there. I'll just, stuff will fall into place. Because I'm like not the most, like, I don't really stress about things. I'm like one of the most laid back, chill people ever. So I literally book a flight to Bali, and I'll just be like, yeah, cool. that'll work out.
Yeah.
Like, insurance will fall into place. I'll find an Airbnb. As long as I don't die, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So literally 3 days before, I started to be like, crap, probably need to actually get in place and get a little bit organized. But no, I went over and it was amazing. The best experience. Like, just throw yourself in at the deep end. Because I wouldn't actually say I'm the most naturally outgoing person. It's something I've worked on a lot over the years and got better at. But throwing yourself into a completely new environment where everybody else there is also in the same boat. Like, everyone else there has come from somewhere else and they don't all know people. You know, everyone's there to meet and to meet new people and mingle and stuff like that. So it's just really good to throw yourself into an environment where you're not going somewhere where, like, you know, it was like at school when you, like, imagine moving to a new school and everyone's already got their friend groups established and like trying to fit in would just be really difficult. You're going somewhere where everyone's new, like everyone's there to meet people and everyone's really open and welcome. So it was honestly one of the best things I've done. Like, you meet so many cool people. Yes, in like business, you meet loads of cool people who have got online businesses and startups, that kind of stuff. But even just everyday people who are like traveling for 2 years and taking gap years, going around the world and stuff. You meet so many cool, different, interesting people from all backgrounds. So I would definitely recommend it. Did
you have like one spot that like you were consistently going to, or did you try multiple different spots? Did you work from your B&B? Like, what did it actually look like in the kind of day to day?
Yeah, in Bali, there's like millions of places you can work. There's like millions of coffee shops, cafes, there's co-working, there's like the gyms have places you can work. There's like literally so many places. But yeah, I say I joined a co-working. Co-working is really good for like meeting people because you end up meeting other people who are out there, you know, working online, working in business, that kind of thing. So that was a really good place to meet people. And then other just coffee shops, because the food's so good as well. That's the other thing. I'm actually getting like such like a full plate for like £3, and it's like amazing food as well. So I put on a few pounds when I was over there. So.
Yeah, I can imagine, mate. And I think you touched on something which is really important, mate, which was around building. You spoke about it, I think, beforehand, building charisma. You know, building something that you felt like you're quite shy, potentially in your kind of years growing up, and it was something that you actually developed. And I think a lot, from what I'm gathering, even from just this short conversation we've had so far, you're very resourceful, which whether that comes from the academic kind of thought process of just going and finding what the answer actually is. I guess that probably played a part on, you do the charisma course before Bali, which then played a impact in your business and in Bali, or do you think someone could just do that anyways and actually just come out their shell? Like, do you think it's something that's required, and also like what kind of impact did it actually have on you? Yeah,
so I did it before Bali, so it was definitely before Bali that I did it. But the reason that I got into doing that course was, like, I've always been quite shy in terms of, like, in like group settings or like meeting new people, I was always like a slightly more reserved. And like, I'd done a lot of kind of like reflection on that and like journaling as well, and like thinking about like, why is that, and you know, how do I overcome that and that kind of thing. And I always stemmed it back to, it was like a feeling of wanting to be liked. So even like coming through school and that kind of stuff, it was always a feeling of, you know, I don't want to put myself out there and be loud and obnoxious and be too different and like have that attention on me, because like if I had attention on me, it felt like people were going to be like judging me or sort of deciding whether they liked me or not. So I was kind of always just more reserved. Like, if I stay in the corner and don't do anything and just stay out of sight, then nobody will notice, and like nobody can't not like me. Do you know that way? So I'd kind of like knew that deep down. And man, I went through this whole course. It was like charisma on command. I don't know, I must have paid like $700 for it or something. And I can't remember anything out of that course apart from one thing. There was like one video and one module that literally just unlocked everything for me. Like, turned me like more charismatic, didn't care, came out my shell, not as shy. And it was literally one video and one module. And I don't even know what the whole video was about, but there's just one sentence in it, and it's live your life for yourself. Like, in every single moment, don't have the focus on what's that person thinking of me? Like, is this person judging me? I hope they like me. Wonder what they're thinking about me right now. You know, like don't have those thoughts. Like, don't focus on that. Just in each moment, think, are you enjoying it? Like, are you having, like, are you, like, it's your life. At the end of the day, you're going to get to the end of 80 years. You're going to die. None of those other people's thoughts are going to matter. The only thing that's going to like have any sort of value towards you was, how was your life? Like, did you enjoy those 80 years? Yeah. So like, even in this moment right now, like, we're sitting here doing a podcast, like, could be quite nerve-wracking, could be quite intimidating, but it's just like, how cool is this? Like, I'm sitting here doing a podcast, chatting about stuff we like, stuff we're passionate about, chatting about how much progress I've made over the last couple of weeks or last couple of years. Like it's just a cool moment. Like why be nervous? Like yeah, there's probably people watching on social media after this. Like who cares? We're just here having a good time, and it's a cool thing to do. So that whole course, there was about 17 other modules. Don't know what any of them said, but that one thing that I took away from that course literally unlocked everything, and it got rid of my shyness, put myself out there, don't care about being different, you know, making jokes in the moment, like even if it might not land well, like I don't care. So I'm just here to enjoy each day, enjoy each month, and just get through it.
That's some powerful shit, mate. I fucking love that. That's incredible.
Money well spent. Well, even though I don't remember half the course.
Definitely, mate. I couldn't agree more. On the topic of passion, then, obviously, on the topic of the fact that you clearly are very passionate about business, what do you feel like kind of ignited that passion? Was it the kind of early door kind of stages of I think you used monotonous. That was a fucking absolute tongue twister of a word. But the kind of day to day of the mundane kind of life that you were actually kind of living as an intern possibly sparked that kind of thought process. But since you've actually became immersed in it though, is your passion just continue to increase? And like, what is the... Try to think about it, man. Like when I look at it, like my passion is so fueled probably by the path that I'm on, and it seems so clear now. It wasn't like that to begin with, and at times I probably miss that kind of chaotic. Like I don't even know if I'm going to have enough cash in my bank at the end of this month, but you always find a way to make it happen. Whereas now it's just such a straight shooting path. I've just went a real roundabout way of actually fucking coming to the question, anyways. But like the passion that you've got at the beginning, has it stayed continuous throughout, or has it even increased like to an even greater scale?
I think it's came and went, to be honest. The thing that drove me initially was I want to live a good life. Like I want to have money. And it kind of takes us back to that one of the earlier points I made was like I had quite a good upbringing. Like my mum and dad were always really supportive. I was never really struggling growing up. You know, we weren't like a struggling family. I was always like quite well off, had nice holidays, had anything really, you know, had new PlayStation games. Like I never really struggled growing up, which like I'm immensely fortunate for. And I know that how, like, it's the right word, I know how grateful I am, but I know how privileged, that's the word. Like I know how privileged I was growing up. Because a lot of people don't have that. And like even people today where they say like, yeah, cool, whatever, you've got a business, but like you had it easy growing up. And like I appreciate that. Like I do. Like I had loving family, supportive mum and dad, didn't really have to struggle for things. There was no pressure when I left uni of like, you have to go and get a job. Like when I first left uni and I had like a couple of clients at my agency, mum and dad were like, cool, stay at home, don't need to pay rent, like we'll support you, get you through that. So like I am super grateful for the opportunities I had. But that was kind of also the fuel of why I started. So some people have the fuel of like, you know, they grow up and they really struggle and they go, you know, I want something different, I want a better life, and that's their drive. But I like vividly remember being on holiday, and I must have been young, like, and I mean like really young, because I remember we went to like a toy shop and I just bought like a Lego spaceship and like walking back to the car. So I'm not like talking like around 10 that age, I don't know what age, but it was around that sort of number. I remember standing in the car park, I think we were in like Florida or something, and I was standing looking about, and even at that age, I was like, this is really cool. Like, I love this. Like, I'm in Florida, I'm like going to theme parks, I've just bought like a Lego rocket ship. I was like, this is the life that I want. Like, I couldn't imagine not having this. Like, that would be really bad if I wasn't here. And I remember being like, when I grow up, like, I want to make sure I still live this lifestyle. Because I had that like realization of, I've got this now, but it's because of my mum and dad. And this is mad. I've never said this out loud, but the fact that I was having these thoughts at 10 is ridiculous. It's mental. But I remember thinking like, when I grow up, I'm going to have to provide for myself. Like, this doesn't just happen automatically for me. Like, this is like a limited window in my life where I get to do these things. And I remember thinking at that age of like, I want to make sure that I'm rich when I'm older. Like, I want to be able to drive nice cars, go on nice holidays and that kind of stuff. So when I got to that internship, and it was like that was the first taste of like, oh, I'm going into the real world now. Like, I can't just coast through uni. I'm not getting like student loans. Like, this is like the end. This is where people stop providing for me. Like, it's now on me to go. So that's where that initial drive came from of, I want to live a good life. Like, I've had a really good upbringing. Like, I've enjoyed that, but I don't want it to stop. Do you know what I mean? It's not just because I'm 18 now or sort of 20, it doesn't mean that that kind of all ends. So that was my initial drive. And that's what got me into business. But then you get to the point where, okay, you're going and then you kind of get comfortable. You know, you're making enough income to get by and you're living an okay, comfortable life. And then it kind of gets to the point where the monetary goals start to lose value to the point where, like, there's only so much extra that money can buy. And you know, as you get new things and nicer things, they don't add much extra. You know, okay, cool. There's still a goal of a Ferrari in there. Like that's still pulling me a little bit. It's like that'll always be there. But it kind of made me realize that there needs to be something else there. So then the location freedom thing was kind of another big one. Was okay, there's obviously the monetary side, but I want to be able to live and work wherever I want.
Yep. So
that was kind of pulling me. But beyond that, I think that's another thing I'm starting to face now is like, okay, what is the bigger vision? Because like the monetary goal can't be it forever. Okay, maybe there's a goal of a Ferrari, which is gets you up in the morning right now, but that will come one day.
Yep.
It will, definitely. That will come one day. Like, what are you going to do after that? Like, what is the longer path? And it's something that I still ask myself and still question to this day as well, because vision is all you've really got. That's the thing that gets you up in the morning. That's the thing that the boring work when you've got to get up and grind through the task that you don't want to do, when you have to put in those extra hours and stay up late or get up early. The vision and the purpose is the only thing that's pulling you. And it's something I ask is like, what is there beyond the monetary vision? So that's what got me into it. That's kind of what me got on this path.
Yep.
Where does it go? Because it will only last for so long. So
have you got an answer?
Not a concrete one yet. Like not one that like I've got a couple of answers that I'm like, yeah, cool, that'd be decent. But you know that way where it's like, you know when it's the right one. Like you can feel it deep and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm actually passionate about that.
Yeah.
Network, I think, is one of them. You know, I've done a lot of thinking around what are my values? Because I think your values tie into your vision and your passion, your purpose, whatever.
Yep.
So I've kind of thought a lot about my values. And one of my true values is network, like connecting and meeting people. And because even that was like what we just talk about, like my whole self-conscious thing was like wanting to be liked and stuff, because I valued network and connection so much that I put too much pressure on it, but I was actually hindering myself. But that I still do value the whole network and meeting people and going out and chatting and exploring and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to lie down the route of network and connection, something. But where? No idea.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out in the next few years.
Definitely. Definitely. I think you touched on something that I think is really important, mate, which is like you said that you'll know when you feel it's right. And I think a lot of individuals, especially when they first start out in business, and even as they I'd probably say when they first start out, they kind of silence that kind of feeling of potential wrong, not wrong, or no, I was going to say wrongdoing, but you'll feel something that you'll feel pretty certain about it, but because you're in uncharted territory, you're like, should I be feeling this way about it? Is this actually something that's going to serve me? Is it going to actually help me move forward? But as you start to, I think, gain experience probably within business, you start to realise that gut instinct, that male intuition that you've got is actually what's going to serve you in the best way possible. And I think that you're absolutely right, mate. I think most people should probably lean even more in that, where they feel something's right. There's probably a reason for that. And for you, it seems to me like you've done so much self-discovery, whether it's through journaling and through different areas where you've actually aligned a lot of your values, programming, past experiences, even the kind of shittier experiences of what you've seen maybe like throughout, maybe wanting to be like within school, you've actually linked it to something that can serve you now moving forward, with understanding that actually plays a part in your vision. Which the question that's actually been in my mind since we actually started is that there's so many different areas of your life, mate, where it could have went the complete opposite way. So for example, you're living up in maybe a privileged lifestyle, you could have had, you've seen individuals like, is it the movie Legend, where it's like the dad's the alcoholic, the two brothers, one of them ends up never drinking alcohol, one of them ends up an alcoholic, and both of them have the same reason, which is it's because their dad was an alcoholic. Like there's so many times where you just seems like you've just chose the right path, which is like, I've actually, sitting here for the last 40 odd minutes, I don't think I've actually been able to understand how to even ask the right question of how you've even acquired that mindset. But it just seems like you're so in tune with your day to day. Does that kind of make sense? I've not asked a question there, but like, I don't even know how to fucking put it.
That does make sense. And it's something I've not really thought about, but it's strange as well because I never feel failure. Because I remember reading the book by Scott, what is it? Scott something. It talks about like failing your way to failure. I don't know. It's out there. If you type in failure in Scott, the book will come up. But I remember reading that book, and he talks about, the only way to get to success is you need to fail and fail and fail and fail, and eventually it will lead you the right way. And I remember thinking, I was like, but I've never failed. Like, I don't really ever feel like I fail or like I do something. Like I never feel like I sit there and I'm like, oh crap, that went really bad. Like that was a failure. I need to go on to the next one. I just feel like I just go through life, and of course there's things that don't go as well, and there's things. And I say that like I feel like I've not failed. When I look back and you think what like normal people categorize as failure, like I definitely have. I've messed up client accounts which have left them to leave. Like that would technically be a failure. Like you've failed on that client. There's been other times where the other times I've messed up, whatever. So when I look back at my life and the things that have happened, there definitely has been failure there. But in the moment, I never sit and think to myself like I have failed here. It's literally just like, oh, okay, well, that didn't go well. Let's try better on the next one. Just keep going. And I never felt like I had to pick myself up to go on to the next thing. It was just kind of like, cool, another day, next thing, next thing, next thing. And it probably ties into that a little bit of sort of just choosing the right path. And I don't know why. Like I wish I had the secret sauce for you of why it's like that, or why I can kind of fall into the right path or make the right decisions. But I don't really know why. I think my upbringing, like my dad as well, like he was always he always set very high standards around, like he's the kind of guy, it's like you come back when you do a test and you get 99% and he'd be like, cool, where'd the 1% go? Like, where's that? Like, why did you let that slip? And it was always from like a good place. Like, of course he was like proud and he was like happy that I was doing well or whatever, but he was always just pushing of, you can do more, like improvement, like where's the next opportunity, that kind of stuff. And I think that combination of seeing what a good life can be, along with him pushing me of like, you can't just rest, like you've got to push yourself and keep going. And like he's instilled a lot of like mindset stuff into me as well, because really opening up on this podcast, but growing up, I used to do go-karting. So I used to like race carts up and down the Britain, whatever. And I was probably like a stereotypical like spoiled child. Like I remember when things weren't going my way, I would like throw little hissy fits and I'd like fall out with my dad and I'd be shouting at him because it was his fault and whatever. And I didn't think at the time, but looking back now, I was like, I would have hated myself. Like if I was an adult looking at me as a kid, I'd been like, he is terrible. Like I hate him. He's like an annoying little brat. And I remember my dad taking me home one day. We're in Clay Pigeon, which is literally like the bottom of the UK. Like you cannot even go any further. And we had to drive back to Glasgow. And we had like a massive fallout. And I remember having this whole drive home, didn't speak once, silence, like massive fallout. And we got home and the next day, he sat me down with a sheet of A4 paper that he'd printed out, and it was like all these different stuff that I had to work on. He was like, if you don't fix this stuff, we're never karting again, and you're going to ruin your life growing up. He's like, you need to fix this stuff by the time you grow up. And one of the big things he was talking about was like managing people's perceptions of you. Like you need to consider how other people view you and like your position in the world. You can't just walk around thinking the world revolves around you. And there's times like that where I think back to the way he raised me. It was always around that like improvement, around, focusing on getting better, managing how people view you, like looking at yourself, that kind of stuff. So I feel like just from an early age, just that guidance from him around taking the right path, choosing the right things, being self-aware and making those decisions. I reckon that's probably where it ties into, but how? I don't know. I'm just glad that it worked out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, what did your dad do kind of growing up?
He was always kind of worked in like, but he was like sales manager. So he worked for kind of like IT companies. Okay. But he kind of started like, he went to school, never went to uni or anything, went and worked for Sky just as an engineer, like installing TVs in people's homes and just worked his way right up from the bottom. So he went on that path of going through the corporate ladder and like growing as well, to the point where you kind of got to like a decent level. So he obviously had a lot of those lessons as well from improving, going through the corporate ladder and getting better and stuff. But he passed a lot of that on to me, which grateful for. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a lot of people are so heavily influenced by their parents, whether they realise it or not, from an aspect of programming. I know for me, when I first came into business, one of the first books I read was Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, and it was just around money and programming around money. And that's the first few chapters are right on that, honing in on
For example, for me, like my mum kind of growing up she wasn't a big spender, but she would spend. And then whereas my dad was tight as fuck, like as tight as possible can be. So for me, like I would save for long periods of time and then splash it all. And it was like when I was reading that book, I was like, holy shit, man. Like I am a combination of, both my parents, whether I like it or not. And it kind of got me thinking about other areas of my life that I would be a combination of both my parents. And it definitely got me to a position where I had probably a path to choose as well, where lessons that my mum would have gave me, that there was a choice there whether I could repel against it or whether I could actually take it on board and move forward. And it seems to me like when I speak to a lot of individuals that maybe feel like they had a shittier upbringing, it comes from quite a lot of, it's an interesting one because your dad actually sitting down and like going through all the things that he believed was wrong, and a lot of it being incredibly valuable for you. That's someone that has your best intentions at heart, as opposed to him doing it for his own ego or him doing it for like his perception of his own life and him as a dad. Like it sounds to me like he actually sat with you and just wanted to help you, which so many people just do not have.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm definitely grateful. But I think it's one of the most valuable things, especially anyone like growing up, anyone at any stage, to be honest, is just practicing that self-awareness. And one of the best habits you can have is journaling, like taking time to like write down, what you're thinking, where are you at, what can you improve on. In fact, something that I think you just spoke about it on that podcast with Lawrence actually was taking time away to just like disappear and just to go and think. It's funny because I've actually been considering that for the last month or two. Like before I'd even seen that podcast, I've been thinking I want to just go and book an Airbnb somewhere in the countryside, leave my phone in the car, like just don't touch it, and just sit for like 3 days with books and a notepad and just think and just see what comes out. And I think I will do that at some point, but I think that's probably one of the highest ROI activities anybody could do, is just taking time away to just sit and think about where am I in life? Who actually am I? What character traits have I got? How is that serving me in my life? Who are the people in my life that are adding value? Who's not? Who do I need to become to reach where I want to go? What are my values? Like what do I believe in? What am I passionate about? And just, I don't think anybody in today's day and age, when we're constantly stimulated by phones and YouTube and Netflix and the next person, or we're on PlayStation, we're on Xbox, it's just constant stimulation from one thing to the next. Like there's very little time nowadays there's very little time whenever you're bored. I remember watching a video recently, it was like, boredom doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. I remember growing up as a little boy and I was constantly like, I'm bored. Like, I've got nothing to do. Like I want to do something next. I couldn't tell you the last time I was bored. It's either I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm doing something. There's just always something to do. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of value in that boredom where you just sit and you just idle and you think. It gives your mind time to calibrate and decide, where are we going? Are we on the right path? Why are we even doing this thing? Like, it's not adding any value. It's just something we're doing because we're doing it for the sake of it, whatever. And I think especially nowadays, we don't have enough time to just reflect and spend that time on self-awareness, I don't think.
Definitely, mate. Do you study in the Bali, out of curiosity?
I've seen quite a lot. I've not read his book, but I've seen a lot of other stuff he's put out.
Yeah. He has a pretty good analogy around like being a lion, for example, in hunting. Like a lion is not continuously hunting, like, deer after deer after deer after deer after deer, in terms of like, for majority of us, like we're just fucking one after another constantly, not even resting, not even taking the time to actually recharge in any way, shape or form. And I think that he sees his role as an owner or as an investor or whatever it may be, is that, he will come in and he will solve the problems, almost like hunting for a deer to feed his family, for example, where he will hunt, he will, find a deer, he will then eat, then he will rest. And then he'll repeat that process again. But majority of people don't even eat and don't even rest. They just continually go. And I know I've been guilty of it. And I know in the beginning of the journey of like scaling a business, you feel like you have to constantly be going and going and going. And I think there comes a time where all the knowledge that you've obtained, you spoke earlier on about like leverage, like that's something that Val constantly speaks about, and you've spoke about in the form of like the value that you deliver, that is a level that you then pull, and then boom, results actually happen. Like there comes a time where the more rest that you actually have, the greater your lever, the greater the impact of the lever, like how long it actually comes, like how far it actually comes down. And I think that's something that's really important, that for me, when I actually do take time away, when I take time to rest, like for example, Lawrence, the kind of 3-day stint, like how mentally clear you're going to feel. And like problems that usually took you like would have took you hours to solve in like 20 minutes. And I know for me, like I streamed in the streaming side of things for 250 days in a row at one point, 5 to 10 hours every single day, plus tournaments on top of it. And eventually I burnt out, and it was my body that was telling me, you know, I had pains in my side. Like it was just so many different things that were fucking horrible, and there was so many things in my life that was weighing me down that I felt like I couldn't solve. And I remember I started with my mum. Mum was like, "You need to take time off, like big time." So I took a week of just literally sitting in my bed, going out a walk, spending time with my partner. That was it. And I remember that next Monday going in the shower and getting ready to get back to it. And I solved 3 problems in the 15 minutes of me being in the shower. And I thought, holy shit, that whole like 250-day stint, I had shit weighing me down so badly that I couldn't even think clearly enough to even get to a valuable solution, that I've just solved it in 15 minutes from actually being mentally clear. And it's a kind of weird paradox of like resting actually allows for you to solve things quicker. So like people can't stop fucking working, but they don't realise that actually through rest you would actually solve it much quicker than just getting at it. What's some of your thoughts on some of that? I just kind of
yeah, 100% I agree, definitely. There's I always kind of think of it, your mind's like a snow globe. It's like when you're going, it's always like shaking about, and like inside your mind, it's just like there's stuff everywhere, and you need to sometimes just stop and just like let your mind settle, let everything just fall to the bottom, and at that point you can shake it up again and go again. But you need those periods where you just let stuff settle again to have the clarity, so you can actually see. It's like, oh, right, where are we? Like, what's going on? It's like, okay, that's over there, that's there. Cool, you get your stuff in order, and then you can go again. You can shake everything up, and you're back to it. You're in the day to day. You're doing stuff. So definitely, I think you need time to clarity. And those showers, honestly, the shower thoughts. That's where the best ideas come from.
Definitely, mate. That analogy's fucking class. By the way, where did you hear that, or is that something you just picked up?
I just thought that when you were saying it. When you said that, like everything just like settled, I was like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Someone said something similar recently. Something about a snow globe. Oh, that's what it was. I was watching a video actually. It was about like psychedelics or something. I can't remember. Do you know those YouTube videos you get where it's like they get like an expert guy to sit down at a table and they like people on Twitter like ask him questions and he like sits and answers them. So a guy talking about like psychedelics or something. He was talking about how like psychedelic therapy, that's what it's like. So it's like your mind, like all the imprints of your mind, like your habits, your formations, and like all the like the neural links get like wired into your brain.
Yep.
And psychedelic therapy is like the snow globe, where everything settles in your mind and it like forms a print. And when you go through psychedelic therapy, it like shakes it up, so it like resets everything, and it can like resettle in a new place. So you can like change your pathways, your habits, your beliefs, your all that kind of stuff. So I remember watching that like 3 or 4 days ago, and then just when you were saying that, I like tied the two analogies together.
Definitely, mate. It was a fucking phenomenal analogy. One thing I've noticed in terms of like, obviously we spoke about the kind of TikTok growth, I guess, to begin with. Seems to me like you're obviously you're very well spoken. There's a lot of, even for me, like when I'm sitting here as a facilitator, a host, like I can see the opportunities of good clips, for example, or good things that I'm like, holy shit, that hits. Like that little snow globe part, that'll fucking bang me 100%. I guess in the topic of like you becoming almost like a mini kind of overnight success with TikTok, for a lot of people, they've probably sat there and they've banged TikTok for months on end and they've not seen any kind of form of result. What would be your piece of feedback to them if they're sitting in a position like that?
Yeah, like specifically around how to get results on TikTok, or
let's cover both. We'll go with like the kind of vanity side of things, the follows, because you've obviously discovered that didn't actually equate to business for yourself, but I feel like it's one of those things that people need to experience it to then go, that's actually not what I actually wanted. But until they get there, they're like, fuck off, Mark, I'll just do it anyways, and just actually see what comes of it. So touch on the follower side of things, and then we'll transition it into actually selling your business. Yeah,
definitely. So it's like you said, when I started on TikTok, the goal was I want leads for my business. That was the reason I started uploading. And the other bit of advice you hear all the time online is, put stuff out on social media, like throw up lots of stuff, look at the data and do more of what works. And like to an extent, that is good advice because that is how you grow. You need to look at what resonates and do more of that stuff. But I was kind of throwing stuff up with quite a wide net, and the stuff that started to work, I was just blindly thinking, okay, that one did more views, do more of that. And I was just blindly following the numbers. And I was chasing these views and followers and stuff like that. And it was working and it was growing, but I ended up growing something that was going off in a completely different direction, which wasn't actually valuing the business. I was talking about finance and investing and how to budget and all this kind of stuff, when I'm over here running a mortgage broker agency doing Facebook ads. It was like two completely separate things. But in the moment, I wasn't taking the time, again, to reflect and actually look at what directions I was heading in. It was just more views, more followers, more numbers. I want to do this. And yeah, I just kept going down this path of just chasing views. And it was mainly the follower numbers that were addicting. You see 6,000, that was really cool. Right, I want to get to 10. And you get the double figures, and you're like, whoa, that feels really cool. And then it's like, well, imagine having 20,000. Like, that would look cool. You're sitting looking at your feed and the little numbers beside it, and you're like, whoa, yeah, this is cool. Then you keep going, it's like, right, I want 20 now, you hit it. Okay, now I want 50, you hit it. Okay, I want 75, you hit it. Then it's like 100,000, like the big 6 figures, that'll be a big moment. And I remember the day I was uploading and I was grinding, I was like, yeah, I want 100K, I want 100K. And I finally got it, and I was sitting there and I was buzzing, to be fair, for like a good 5 minutes. I was like, that's really cool. And then I was like, all right, nice, man. Went back to my desk, I was like, I've got a couple of emails to reply to. Cool, get ready for my day, I'm going to go to sleep now. And my life just went back to normal. And I woke up the next day and I was like, oh yeah, that's quite cool. Right, decent, put my phone down, back to normal. And I was like, why did I care so much about this? Like, it comes and you hit it, and it's such an anti-climax. Like, your life's no different. Nobody looks at you any different. Like, some people were like, oh, cool, so you hit 100K, that's quite cool. And like, yeah, it's not bad, I guess. But like, your life is no different. And like, I remember like when I first started TikTok, the thought of hitting 100K or having all these followers, I thought, that's really cool. It's like a status thing. It's like, you feel like it'll make you more important or whatever. But honestly, as soon as you hit it, it feels it's pointless. There's nothing. And you hear it all the time from people that have done it. And I'm sitting here saying it now. And the people out there thinking like, yeah, cool, whatever. But like, it doesn't stop you. Like, just because I've said it's not that satisfying doesn't mean that you don't have that desire. But it's just having the mindset of, okay, you maybe not ever get rid of that feeling of wanting to hit the numbers, because like it does feel good. And the chase, until you get there, you'll always want that. But have in mind that it's not just about the numbers. Be posted on social media for a purpose. Whether that's, even if it is, you want to be a lifestyle influencer, that's your goal. But your goal has to be intentional. It's like, you're getting to that number for a reason. It's because it'll open up this opportunity. It'll give me this brand deal. It'll because I can then get into this room, or I can connect with this person, or if I get to this stage or hit this milestone, it'll do something. Like, be intentional with the targets you're hitting and the milestones, and also the content you're putting out. If you want to be, for example, in my case, if you're trying to generate leads for your marketing business, you don't need 100,000 followers. You could have 5,000, but if they're good quality and you're making good content that's actually valuable to that 5K, that's more useful to you. Like, there's more reason to chase that. So, okay, you might think, I want to hit 20K because if I get that, it'll give me some authority in the space to sell to them. But don't just chase the number. There needs to be a reason behind it, definitely.
Yeah, no, I can agree more, mate. I think majority of individuals, like we've touched on, they will kind of take it as, I think Joe Rogan spoke about it on his podcast around like cars and money and like fame and all these sort of things. And it's like, yeah, people will be sitting there like, yeah, it's okay for you, Mark. You've got X, Y, and Z. I'll find out for myself. And then they get there and it doesn't feel as quite the same. Which I think is an important lesson for anyone. And I'm not really sure if anyone would be able to actually take it on board and be like, fucking hell, he's right. He's actually right, until he actually does it. So, or they actually do it. Which I completely understand. It's
just important to reflect again, because again, if you're in the moment and it's just like, you hear that and you think, okay, cool, whatever, and then you go back to, you jump back on TikTok, or if this is a clip right now and you think, you watch that and you go, cool, that was a good advice, and you scroll and you'll forget about this and again the next 10 seconds. If you do that, you'll never take the advice on board. But if you sit down and genuinely think about what is the vision, like, where do I want to get to? Like, I want to grow a business around this. Like, is having that, like, just vanity number of followers actually useful? Probably not. Like, take time to genuinely reflect on that. I think that's the only way you'll ever get past that, is if you genuinely stop and like take time to process it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, mate. And there's just one more thing, because I think how are we for time? 15, cool. one more thing I did want to touch on that I think will be incredibly valuable, mate, is that you've kind of got to a position now where you've started hiring. You're in a position where you're scaling. At what point did you realize that hiring was the kind of next step? And then also, like, how did you actually feel about that kind of next step and actually taking it?
Yeah, so again, I knew that I had to do it long before I did it, because I spent a lot of time learning and reading and watching the videos on, yes, you need to do this. And I've spent way too long learning instead of doing. But something that I've really had to learn a lot more is how to delegate and how to give up control and to bring people in to show them how to do it and to give them responsibility. And yeah, for the first probably year and a half, say I was growing an agency, but I was just really being a freelancer. Like, it was me, my laptop, my internet, and I was running it. It was just literally me, maybe a couple of VAs and that kind of thing. But it was really just myself. And I knew that the next step was, okay, I need to get to a point where we're building an actual team so that I can start to remove myself from the day-to-day delivery and focus on sales, on marketing, on hiring more people, on building systems to build a genuine business. So probably about 7 months ago, I realized, like, okay, I can't just keep using like VAs, because, like, yes, okay, you get some amazing overseas talent, but I kind of knew that I wanted to build like a proper team based here, either in the UK or like America, that kind of thing. So yeah, about 7 months ago, we ended up started to hire sort of like media buyers, creative strategists, that kind of stuff, and start to bring this in-house. But it's been like a real learning curve around not only hiring, so around, you know, what is the company's culture, what's the vision, where are we going, and also around how do we delegate, so making sure we've got the right systems. Because at the moment, like, the business is in here. Like, I know what we need to do. Like, I know the steps we need to take. I know how do we get this client on board? How do we get them set up? What do we need to run, etc. But that's no use to someone that's just coming in. You know, I can't just be there telling them what to do all the time. So it's learning how to systemize the process that we're doing and make it repeatable so that we can just plug people in and let it go. So, amazing book, by the way, if anyone wants to read about this, it's the E-Myth Revisited. It's an amazing book around systemizing what you're doing and starting to build process around it. That was like it was a big eye opener for me around, like, I don't actually have a business here. I've got myself and some skills that I'm charging people for.
Yeah.
That was the kind of the big unlock of, okay, it's time to take this a bit more seriously.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And obviously the kind of steps, I guess, like the first few steps that you actually took to hire, what did those kind of look like?
Yeah, so the first real kind of main hire we made was actually one of my friends from uni. And he kind of went to uni as well. He was doing sort of business and marketing stuff at uni, but he also has like a clothing brand type thing. So could already see that he was kind of entrepreneurial and kind of forward thinking and kind of more of an action taker. So it made sense really to bring him in as the first one. Because again, kind of close with him, quite friendly, could see that he had the vision and the drive and that kind of stuff. So yeah, in fact, the first few hires actually, I've just been trying to hire from kind of around my network. Yeah. And then also just hiring on attitude first. So for example, that guy who kind of showed that he was slightly entrepreneurial, had that forward thinker, or hiring people who show that they're what's the right word? But like action takers, if they've got the right mindset, the right work ethic, and hiring on that first, and then teaching the skills. Because I'm a strong believer that the skill side is much easier to teach than the work ethic or the culture fit or the attitude. So got a real focus around hiring on that first, and you can teach the rest of it. Yeah.
You had any shitty hires yet?
A few overseas, but not actually too many. You've got a few people who are like a bit flaky, or they'll like stick around for a few weeks and then they'll leave, or just kind of not very responsive. But we've not actually had any that have like blown up yet, thankfully. Touch wood somewhere.
Yeah, because I think that's what a lot of people are fearful of to begin with, and they're fearful of like potentially going wrong. And it's very clear we've identified through this podcast that you don't really have that mindset towards it. You have a very kind of clear mindset of, you don't even look at things as failures, so you just literally just get back up, move forward, learn from it, and actually just grow the business regardless. And the topic of learning, I guess, and your kind of journey within business so far, what has kind of been your top learning or lesson that you wish that you learned probably back at the beginning?
That's a good question. I don't know. I've never actually thought about this. You people ask us all the time on podcasts, like, if you would go back and give yourself 18-year-old advice, like, what would it be? I think take action is the biggest thing. Yeah. Take action is It's the thing that's helped me a lot now compared to back then, is you don't need to study everything to a minor detail before you get started. Definitely just jump in and take action. The other big shift for me as well, though, was learning to shift like my beliefs about myself, like the power of the words that you say about yourself. So like I catch myself all the time now. I'll be like today, actually, this is a perfect example of, I just recently bought one, you know those like cold plungers you get?
Yep.
Out in the back garden. It's like one of these little tub things. And I was standing there at my back door looking at it, and honestly, it's the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Like, it's terrible. So bad. Like, I hate it so much. I remember standing looking out the back door, looking at it, and I was like, you know all these people online talking about, oh, cold plungers are great, man. You feel so good after it. And I was standing there, I was like, why do I not like feel this about this thing? Like, okay, it feels better once I get out of it, but the thought of getting in there right now is terrible. And I was sitting thinking, I was like, why do I hate this more than other people? And I like came to the conclusion in my head was like, oh, I'm just not good with cold water. And I like instantly caught myself saying like, I am just not good with cold water. And I was like, no. Like, you don't say that. It's like, you don't say I am X, I am Y. Like, don't give yourself that label. And I like instantly reframed it, and I was like, no, you're not used to cold water yet. And like the power of that language. And I catch myself doing that now day to day. And that was an example that literally just happened this morning. But throughout my day and throughout my life, like the words that you say about yourself and the language that you use should always empower you or set yourself up to do better in the future. Like, don't say, I can't do it because, or I am this X, Y, Z. Like, that doesn't serve you whatsoever. And that's been a real big unlock for me. And like, I notice it now in like my day to day. So like, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be jumping in that cold plunge head first before we know it, because I'll be used to cold water by then. But even just like learning to say to yourself, it's like, I am disciplined. Like, I am the kind of person who gets up early and does the work. I am the kind of person that goes to the gym. The words that you say to yourself are extreme. And it sounds a bit woo-woo. Like, it sounds a little bit like, oh yeah, cool, like meditation, spiritual, like all this kind of stuff. And I thought that at first as well, when I heard people talking about like, I am, like affirmations, this kind of stuff. I was like, shut up. There's no way there's any value in that. But there is, like, the most powerful thing that you've got. Definitely,
mate. One of the modules within our course that I done was literally titled Mind Your Language. And it was about exactly that. And it's interesting because as you're kind of talking, one of the things within that module is around the topic of luck and chance. And like, I've noticed just from obviously doing that module and doing the course, like a couple of things that you've even said recently. You said hopefully, just there when you said about obviously hopefully I'll get to a level where I can just jump head first into a plunge. You know, also done the fingers crossed, you know, also done the touch wood. And it's like, they're all things that I've probably noticed that I used to say all the time, mate. I was obsessed with it. Even still now, where it's almost like it's actually hard to find things to replace those things that you say, where it's like touch wood is just kind of like a kind of jokey, like, I hope it like doesn't all go to shit kind of way. And it's kind of hard to actually find something to replace that, is what I noticed. Because one of the things that the coach that I was working with at the time, she even brought up something like when someone's like traveling back on a flight, like saying like, have a safe flight. Like, that's something that is so like, why would the flight not be safe? Like, and then also in the form of like just saying, you know, good luck when somebody goes to sit an exam or goes to sit something important. My little sister just sat her driving test. I'm like, oh, good luck. And then I hear myself saying it. I'm like, but what is actually the replacement for it? Like, what is the replacement for saying something like that? It's interesting, just as you were kind of rhyming those things off, if someone maybe does have negative, I was going to say affirmations, whether that would be the right word, like negative opinion of themselves or negative opinion of a certain area or thing. You touched on self-awareness earlier on. How is that something that could be improved or worked on?
Yeah, I think Alex Hormozy is the person that really opened my eyes to this and the power of it. And he's the reason I now think it's not woo-woo, because like all the other stuff he says just makes so much sense and it's so logical. I was like, right, if he's saying this, like there must actually be some truth to it. Yeah. So he's kind of the person that really opened my eyes to it, and it was his strategy around it is like, you can't just say, and like his thing is like, I don't like affirmations. Like, I don't like he doesn't say, I am rich, but you've got like £2 in the bank. It's like, your mind knows that. It's not stupid. Like, you can't just trick it into believing something that's not true. And he says like, you need to stack the undeniable evidence that it is true. Yeah. So like, you need to start to say to yourself, it's like, okay, like I am the person who can become disciplined. And like, it's got to start with action. Like, you've got to just start putting things in place. So like this morning, when I'm looking at that cold plunge going, there's no way I want to get in that. Like, you have to do it anyway. Like, just take the step, get in it. And when you come out, you can go, look, okay, that was a disciplined action. Like, I am disciplined for not wanting to do that, getting over the hurdle, getting in anyway, and feeling better after it. Like, that's a tick in the box of you're a disciplined person. And you've just got to cast enough votes in the right direction of I am disciplined. So I get in the cold plunge today. Cool. After that, go up, just start work straight away. Cool. Done that. Hits 3 o'clock. Make sure you go to the gym. Cool. Done that. At the end of the day, you've cast enough votes in the direction of being disciplined. At the end of the day, you can go, look, you are a disciplined person. And you go, I am disciplined now because I've got the evidence to show it. And you just need to keep casting the votes in the right direction and being mindful with what's the outcome I want. So what's the thing you want to change? So I say discipline, but there's also like, you could, like, I am outgoing now, something that I didn't used to think I was. But now, after today, I went on a podcast. That's a cast in the right direction. Like, you could have asked me, like, oh, do you want to come on the podcast? And I could go, oh yeah, maybe, don't know, cool. Nah, maybe not. Yep. Or you get offered an opportunity to go and speak at something and you go, nah, it's not for me. Like, you have to go, no, I know that I want to be someone who's outgoing, charismatic. I know that I need to cast that vote in that direction. And you do it anyway. And it'll be uncomfortable. You're going to have to put yourself in places that aren't necessarily nice or where you want to be. But eventually those kind of things become normal, where you can now just come on a podcast and it's not a big day. It's just another day, whatever. It's just another hour. Or you just start going to work naturally, or you go to the gym because you're now a disciplined person. But it starts with action first. Build up the evidence and convince yourself that you are actually the thing. And then you can start to say, I am.
Yeah. I think Hormozy definitely has shown a light on a lot of the areas that a lot of people explained in a kind of more woo-woo way, but in a more logical, methodical way of actually implementing these things into your day-to-day that I think has resonated with a lot of individuals, probably similar to our age. And the fact that he's like, what, 32? Like, the fact that he's young and done this shit, like, he's so much more relatable, and it seems like things are so much more tangible also, where it's like, if someone is in their later years, maybe their lessons, maybe that's ignorance or ego or whatever it may be, that they might not be as applicable now. But having someone like that firsthand, man, like, I would give any piece of advice to anyone listening, if you're not following Hormozy, man, like, fucking get on it.
He's wise, isn't he?
Yeah, he's wise without a doubt, mate. But I think we covered fucking everything that we planned on covering, which I thought it's been fantastic, mate. Immense value. Thank you to Paul. As always, mate. In terms of people finding you on platforms to consume your content and stuff like that, have you got a handle or certain platforms that you're going to be more active on?
Yeah, Twitter's the main one. So Mark Ross _ecom is the main place. If you've got an e-commerce brand, link me up. Yeah, that's the main place. LinkedIn, Mark Ross, and doubling down on YouTube this year. That's the strategy. Going to be doubling down on the YouTube content. So find me on there as well, Mark Ross.
That'll be class, mate. That'll be class. Is it like longer form content on YouTube? Is that what you're thinking about? Or
yeah, longer form. All focused around TikTok and e-com. Just gonna really bullish on YouTube as a lead flow channel. I think because there's a higher barrier to entry just now compared to some of these other channels. There's not a lot of people doing it properly or doing it well. And especially if you're a service-based business, where something that's quite search-based, people search how to run ads for e-com, whatever, that kind of stuff. Yeah, tons of value on there if you're a service-based business.
Definitely, man. I couldn't agree more, man. And thank you also for taking the time to come on, mate. I think it's been an incredibly valuable lessons within the podcast. I think this is probably the podcast that I've spoke the least, which I love. I absolutely love. Easy day at the office, mate, 100%. But yeah, if you're on Spotify, make sure obviously follow, click the bell, YouTube as well, subscribe. We'll be uploading these every 2 weeks at the moment, getting some incredible guests in, people like Mark who've done incredible things and going to continue to do incredible things. So yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to listen. And yeah, that's a wrap, man.